Howdy there, fellow Shadow Priests. Today we're talking about how to deal effective damage in Arena. This is something I'm sure a lot of Shadow Priests struggle with, myself included. It's hard to compete with the crazy burst damage of Warriors and Rets and Windwalkers and basically almost every other class that can one-shot you. So we're going to talk about how to maximize our DPS, a little bit about the general rotation, priorities on spells, and how to set your burst up to actually score a kill. So let's go ahead and look at PvP talents first, because I think those are the most important. I've noticed some people have not caught on to how good Lasting Plague is. You want to run that basically every game. The only time I wouldn't use it is against a team that has multiple disease dispels. So for example, my last game was against a Ret Paladin, Shadow Priest, Dispriest. So they have 3 disease dispels, and I found that I wouldn't get much utility out of Lasting Plague, so I untalented it. If we look at the tooltip when we don't have it on, our DP is going to do 2,395 damage over 6 seconds, and if we put it on, it'll shift over to almost 4.8k. So we're literally doubling our damage just by putting that talent in there. We're also going to want to play Void Origins a lot of the time if you're playing with a melee DPS, just because it's going to be hard to go into Void form sometimes against a cleave team, and if you're able to just go out there guns blazing without having to worry about juking kicks, you can get pressure very quickly. Void Shift seems less useful because if you extend the game but you don't actually kill anyone, it doesn't really do too much for you. I have been playing with it very often with casters because I feel like I'm able to free cast. I'm not the only one getting interrupted or trained, so I generally would play swap with like a Warlock or a Boomkin. But anyhow, Unfurling Darkness, default every time to instantly apply VT after you use Damnation or another VT cast. Misery, pretty straightforward, just saves you globals. It's pretty global starved right now, and given how fast paced everything is, these other 2 talents aren't very good either. Psychic Ward, you play this if your team doesn't have a lot of stuns, so I would play Mind Bomb with like a Rogue or a Windwalker. Shadow Crash, this is just a great way to deal effective burst damage and to generate insanity. It doesn't split damage either, so if you can hit multiple people with it, that's very good. Damnation, I use this 90% of the time. There's a few situations where I'd play Void Torrent if I'm playing with other casters and a team doesn't have very many interrupts. Like for example, this last team I fought was a Ret Paladin, Shadow Priest, Dispriest, so they only had 1 kick and I wasn't getting trained, and they have so many dispels for DP that I just thought Void Torrent would be better, and I was able to get some good burst out of that. I casted it 4 times and it did 36k damage, so not too bad. Right, let's just talk about your general strategy to generate insanity before we talk about bursting. Insanity is our #1 way to do damage, to dump our Devouring Plagues, so we need to generate that as effectively as possible. To do that, we're going to put a higher priority on dotting in multiple targets. So I'm going to run in Damnation the kill target, dot the off target, and I'll also shoot a Shadow Crash, and that should put me around 30 insanity. From there, I'm going to Mind Flay, and this is better than Mind Blasting for multiple reasons. One is it's actually hard to sit there and just fake cast Mind Blast against 2 melee. With Mind Flay, you're actually juking and getting insanity at the same time and damage. So we don't want to Mind Blast. It doesn't do that much damage. It seems like Mind Flay is a lot better. Also, we're going to proc that instant Mind Blast. I don't know if you noticed, but when I was dotting or Mind Flaying, I got the instant proc in the Mind Blast, and I'm able to cast that while Mind Flaying. So that's going to be kind of your basic DPS rotation outside of dumping your insanity when necessary. And also, Mind Games for burst, Shadow Fiend for burst, Void Form, all that stuff. Like, we're just talking about ways to generate insanity, and we're going to be looking to just keep our dots up, Mind Flay, Mind Blast when you get the proc, basically it, and Shadow Crash off cooldown. So that's kind of the gist of your filler damage, and I'm going to dump my insanity here to kind of replay that scenario. Right, now that we know kind of what to do to generate insanity, let's just take a look at what Icy Veins, the Shadow Priest PvE page, recommends to do for bursting, because I think doing damage in PvE very important if you can apply that to Arena. So they recommend using Shadow Fiend before going Void Form. I recommend this too, just because you're going to be pretty starved for globals during your CC setups, and if you can get that Shadow Fiend going early, it's going to start pumping some damage, and who knows, maybe the target you're killing goes to 80% before you start your CC chain. That would be ideal. Next thing, you're going to want to do a Void Form and Power Infusion. It's kind of hard to, sometimes I use Power Infusion just to get the Void Form cast off, so I wouldn't worry too much about using it after you get the Void Eruption. And then first global after going Void Form, we're going to be to Void Bolt. That'll help us extend Void Form, as well as putting up this Hungering Void 10% damage increase. And once we get that off, our next highest priority, very, very high priority, is to get the Mind Games off, because this is your super crazy burst damage. You can actually crit like 10k or more with Mind Games if you're in Void Form and you have all of your, if you have Hungering Void up and your dots, you can do increased damage. Being in Void Form in general gives you that Shadow Priest mastery. So that I just recently learned. If anyone else didn't know that, you get the full benefit of your mastery by being in Void Form. So let's go ahead and test that out on the dummies, and then we'll take a look at what it looks like in Arena as well. Let's pretend that I'm playing a threes game, and we've decided that Skull is the target, Moon's the off target, and Square is the healer. I'm going to have the healer on focus to CC him. We're going to have our other party member, our DPS, stun the Skull, and then when I see that stun on the Skull, that means it's my turn to stun the Square. So let's pretend the gate's just opened. I'm going to run out, do what I said, Damnation, instantly dot the other target, Shadow Crash, generate Insanity, start Mind Flaying 2. As soon as my partner tells me he's ready to burst, I'll drop that Shadow Fiend, whatever, use my Mind Blast proc, and then I'm going to PI, Void Form. He stuns right now. I got the Void Bolt off. I'm going to prioritize Mind Games because that's my burst damage, and then Void Bolt off cooldown while dumping my Insanity too. And your DPs stack as well if you didn't know that, so it's fine to continually apply them if they have node spells. I'm Shadow Crashing off cooldown, just Void Bolting as much as I possibly can, and maybe that wasn't the best DPS for like a PvE player, but that's kind of what it's going to look like in Arena using an Arena talents. Right now for the fun stuff, we have an actual Arena against a Windwalker and a Warrior. These guys do so much damage, it's so scary to face these classes as a Shadow Priest, but again, we're going to provide tips to try to help you get your damage rolling and try to maybe set up some crazy burst windows, So first priority is to not stack, because I know I'm not going to be the target, so I'm going to instantly move in this direction over here, and that's going to allow me to have space to not get kicked by the shaman, to not get CC'd by either of them, and most importantly, not get cleaved, not take extra damage. So let's go ahead and see where I go positioning wise. Press start. I'm going over here to the left. Instantly, remember, dot that main target, dot the off target, and then we're going to look to set up this burst here. So I'm going to pause it right now. Typically, I stun the healer, but because the Druid is afraid to get cleaved too, he doesn't want to go in to stun them, and since he's in stealth, he gets free CC on the healer with his stun. So as soon as I see that stun on him, I'm able to throw it on the Warrior, and then my next globals are going to be Power Infusion and Void Form. I'm also going to silence off that if he doesn't get the clone, but he tells me he's getting the clone, so I don't have to worry. So we're going to go Void Form. I'll send the Shadow Fiend out right after. We did mention earlier it's better to use it before, but it was so fast that I didn't have time to actually do it. We have to bait the Reflect out and then Mind Game Shadow Word Death. Look at that damage. 3.2k DPS. I did more damage than the Windwalker and the Warrior combined. That was a very quick game, but still, you get the gist. You can do a ton of damage. So maybe let's go ahead and watch that one back full speed. I'll put the voice in too so you can hear everything that happened. I also mentioned that it was better for me to Mind Games here than to Void Bolt, just because I knew that this would kill him, and Void Bolt maybe it wouldn't have been enough with his parry up, but if I can get him into death range with Mind Games and maybe even make him do, I don't know, less pressure, it just seems more effective to get that Mind Games off in this window. Even though Icy Veins would say to Void Bolt off cooldown, I feel like getting Mind Games off is super huge when you're in Void Form, so I will play it back now.
I'm just gonna go try and CC healer in the opener, and you can go.
Yeah, we can coil one, stun one, and just pop off.
Yeah. I'll pop out. I'm gonna pop off on Warrior just to get the most.
Yeah. Down for that.
Yes, sir.
Alright, going.
Most insane damn ever.
Go on to you, skin you. You're fine. Clone healer again.
Okay, dude. So I soloed him. I'm just kidding.
I sold him.
So that was pretty close to ideal for a burst setup, but let's take a look at a game where I'm the target, and I'm not going to be able to get that insane like Icy Veins DPS rotation up that we talked about earlier, but we're still going to be able to put out tons of pressure with getting a solid mind games off. So the Hunter's feared, he can't kick me. The Feral got stunned. I know he can't kick me. I get the mind games off and do my CC, and that's the game right there. So even though I didn't have like crazy damage, I got my DP up. I didn't get to really go Void Form or Shadow Fiend. We're able to close games out really quickly just by getting a good setup off. Alright, here's a game where we're not really going to one-shot anyone. It's going to be a lot slower pace, and we'll get a look at what it's like to do damage, getting railed by 2 melee. I'm utilizing my Shackle Undead tree to get their interrupts. There's no kicks. I prioritize to get the mind games off during our CC. Then I hop in Void Form and just start pumping. I silence the Pally when the Intervene buff falls, so I don't silence myself. He had the Reflect talent there. Once the Warrior gets away from me, I'm just going to kind of swap over the DK, but I'll hit the Warrior again when he's in line. It's apparent that we're not going to kill this guy because Warriors are super tanky, so the best thing for me to do would be to get away from the pillar and put them in a bad spot where they can't hit us. I'm moving away from the Warrior now again. The DK has no interrupt, and the Warrior's running away from me, so I know I can free cast. Get some more CC on the healer here, trying to finish the job. We've gotten every cooldown bubble. I think the Warrior used his defensive too, rally and stuff, so we're looking pretty good so far. The only problem is our positioning right now is bad. We're stacked on the pillar, and it's going to be really easy for the Warrior to get away. As you just saw, he was at like 5% HP and just walked around the pillar, and neither of us could hit them because we're so slow. Well, Boomies have more mobility than Priest, but I wasn't unable to finish the Warrior here. So when we're playing this close to the pillar, this is what's going to happen. That they're just going to run away and survive. So new strat is to just run completely far away. My Tour of Shadows is kind of troll here. I get kicked, grip the Boomie away from them, try not to stack up if possible, but still keep them in the open. Using my Shackle Undead tree to bait the kicks and just go ahead, reapply all the dots. Shackling the A-bomb is really good as well to reduce damage. I should be throwing out Shadow Crash a little bit sooner, and I've noticed that I've kind of been holding on to it, so picking up on some good mistakes here. Use my Dispersion while our Shaman CC'd, that's all fine. Fear the healer, stun the DPS, get the mind games off. If I went Void Form and then went mind games, he would have been able to reflect, so it's just kind of priority on what's more important sometimes. Waste my Void Form here, kind of. He has AMZ up, so it's not going to do too much. But when the AMZ expires, I still have like 10 seconds of Void Form uptime. So just looking to spam Void Bolt, keep my DPs up, dump my Insanity when it's necessary. I have a Silence ready, but we don't really have enough damage to kill something, so I think I'm just going to hold on to that. I have Vampiric Embrace up as well, since I'm putting out pressure and they're not near us. We're going to be doing a decent amount of healing with that for our healer and the Druid. Positioning is a little weird right now because the Druid's pushing in and I'm not. So we kind of get out of sync here with the Root Beam. I'm not there to connect with anyone. And now we're just kind of getting blasted while getting LOS simultaneously. So let's skip ahead in this video a little bit so we don't waste too much time on this one. I think we start to figure it out that we can't play on their pillar and we're going to lose if we continue to like push into them. So our strategy was just to simply run away. They start splitting, that's fine. I only have to deal with one kick, and like I said, I have 2 trees, so it's going to be easy to go through those. I'm trying to door shadows away, make them push in on us. This forces the healer off the pillar. He's hungry for CC, so we get a free hex on him there. You have to be really cautious when there's 2 interrupts up and you're this low. Like, look at my HP. If I got kicked there, I could easily die without dispersing, so I fake both of them. That allows me to know that I'm safe. I can cast, I can do damage. We get a setup on the Pally here. He bubbles my mind games. I emptied the bubble, and I've sped the video up at this point because it honestly is so boring and painful to watch me just get railed over and over again. Fade on the Kyrian Spear. I've been doing that consistently this game just to avoid that bullshit. Looks like we have 2 great kill targets here. The Pally or the DK are super killable. The DK AMS'd at one point, and we know that we just got the Pally's bubble, so if we get some good CC on him, we can finish this DK off. DK gets cloned low HP. They can't stop my Void Form. I popped it on the Warrior, but as soon as DK's out, we're going to switch all of our damage back to him. So I stun the healer. I'm spamming my instant cast, get the Void Bolt back on him, fear the healer. Should have deathed him, but he ends up dying anyways. Right, that'll conclude the video. It can't be more than 15 minutes long. I will say all those clips that we showed in the video were taken from my stream at twitch.tv/stopsp. check that out, follow it, come say hi, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks. Have fun out there.